we're all good to go. We're recording, and um, take it away,
All right.
guys. Yeah.
All right.
Woo!
Hi, guys. Good morning if you're in the West Coast. Uh, good afternoon, or what time is it in New York time? And good evening if you're in the UK, anywhere you're in the world. Thank you for joining us. Super excited. Hi, Bill. Hi, Corey. So we're gonna jump right in. My name is Caroline Raffi. I'm a VP of Enterprise for Ducere Global Business School. At Ducere, our vision and mission is to design and deliver the world's most industry applied university degrees that advances students' career. We're focused on career progression specifically. Our passion is to overcome objections, to see how we can help provide quality education for all, whether it's time, whether it's cost. And then here we have the lovely Corey from LinkedIn to join us. Corey, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Corey. Corey Welsh is a senior enablement lead at LinkedIn, leading sales training and new hire onboarding for the B2B sellers who are driving LinkedIn's mission. She's also a communication enthusiast with her bachelor's and master's degree from USC Ann Arbor School for Communication and Journalism. Not only she's the mentorship lead for women in LinkedIn North America. Woo, I love that. She moonlights a career coach and loves helping both students and recent graduates accelerate their career. And I know and appreciate that firsthand. And that's why you're here. Thank you so much. We're really grateful for your time. In her spare time, Corey is a newly hiker, a yogi, and a longtime cat mom. She also loves taking jumping pics and uses them as inspirational content to empower others to take the leap in their career too. Thank you so much, Corey. And also, Bill is here with us. Bill is Ducere's Global Marketing Manager. Thank you for being here, and let's get to it.
All right. Thank you, by the way, for the very flattering intro, Caroline. So for those of you on the line, I would love to have you go ahead and can you chat us and tell us where you're dialing in from around the world? Because I'd love to make sure you're all with me. And it's very beautiful to me that Ducere serves students and business leaders across the world. So one of the main reasons I was excited to partner when we first were introduced, Caroline, is because of your Australian origins as well, where I spent 3 years living and working. And it looks like Bill, good news is we have Q&A enabled, but the chat is not enabled for the
Yeah.
participants.
I just,
Oh,
thanks for
there you
that, but we're all
go.
good.
All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, now you all can both ask questions and chat to us. But I will go ahead and keep moving as Caroline's already introduced me. And we're not here to talk about me. We are here to talk about LinkedIn and all of you and how I'm very passionate about the fact that LinkedIn can help not just connect the world's professionals, because we are the largest professional network online, but we can also help accelerate careers and really create economic opportunity, which is our vision here at LinkedIn, to create not only economic opportunity, but equal opportunity for every member of the global workforce, not just job seekers, not just white collar workers, but everyone in every market. So we definitely share, I would say, a common mission at like LinkedIn to Ducere. And I love the focus on equitable access to education. Let's talk about how LinkedIn, which is free to all of you, can really help not only connect you, but build your brand, elevate your story, and amplify your voice. That's our goal over the next 3 sessions that we are going to offer just to start in partnership with Ducere. So today we are going to focus primarily on how to use LinkedIn to tell your story. It starts with you. And obviously you can imagine that starts with your LinkedIn profile. The first question I think is most important to ponder is why use LinkedIn? What is it you're trying to achieve right now? Either making a career pivot or after you've completed your MBA, what is it you're trying to achieve? Is it a new role? Is it a stronger brand? Is it more thought leadership?
Corey,
Caroline, anything to add?
Yes, no, a quick question because one of the questions that we get asked from students is that, hey, I have a different background, like I'm from automotive, or I'm from art industry, or I'm from healthcare, how does that work? And our answer is, for your MBA, it's about leadership. So it doesn't matter what your background is, So how is it with LinkedIn? If you come from different backgrounds, someone might say, I don't know, I'm in healthcare, or I'm in art industry, or how does that work into LinkedIn? And
Great
creating.
question. That's a perfect segue, because I think the most important question to ask yourself on this webinar in this moment is, why is it that you want to create a brand online? Even if you are, let's say you come from the healthcare industry, you're a career nurse, and you have a perception that like there are no nurses on LinkedIn. Don't you want to create economic opportunity for yourself? Couldn't you be open to a potential career change one day? Or what if one day you're out of work and you're desperate to find a new employer, and it turns out there is one of the fastest growing demographics on LinkedIn.com is nurses. So
Beautiful.
healthcare, or the intersection of healthcare and technology. I also like to think about it in this way. A few years ago, my boss gave me some advice, which is that your next role might not even exist yet because of the rate at which technology is changing. So I would say, if people are going to be looking you up online, don't you want them to come up with something good? And this is where you can have a professional profile of record. You can tell your story. But in order to tell that story, you have to answer, why are you on LinkedIn? What is your goal? Whether that's your career goal or your personal ambition.
Beautiful. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're very welcome. The second and third questions I want you all to kind of keep in mind as we plan our second and third session together over the next several months is, who is it that you want to connect with on LinkedIn? Because remember, LinkedIn's here to connect people. So is it potential employers, or is it future clients because you want to start your own business? Or are you looking to connect with like-minded people because you're trying to recruit educators to come teach at Ducere? Thinking about the who is important, but it's critical to start with why. And then once you really know your why and your mission and your purpose as a person, then it's time to kind of delve deeper into who and what. What is it you want to learn? What is it you want to share? I only anchor on this because today we're going to focus only on like number one, which is, why are you here? That's going to help you define your goals for both your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn strategy. So let's all start to think about our personal goals. And I want you to all take 30 seconds to write down, what is your objective with refreshing your brand online? By the end of 2024, do you want to have more followers or connections? Do you want to have used your voice more to write content and put thought leadership out there? And feel free, if you're brave, put them in the chat. All right, looks like some people are still pondering. I'm sharing my goal so that I can be vulnerable with all of you. Oh, I love it. Increasing your brand recognition, helping more people or more students find Ducere. One of my goals is to try out, test, and pilot a podcast. So I want to help both attract and recruit more voices to be on my future podcast one day. And I hope that all of you are thinking about, what's your goal? Is it around employment or promotion? Is it around finding, again, like new channels where you can share your wisdom? They're all valid. Okay, so once you've answered the question of why, it's time to start telling the story of who you are so that you can achieve that mission. And your story starts with your profile, because on LinkedIn, guess what the most common activity is on the whole network? Viewing other people's profiles. That's what people do the most, more than post, more than search for jobs. So, I love hearing these. Thank you. So, Anna Marie, increasing your personal brand after you get promoted or pivoting to a new role. DJ, I love this one, using your connections to establish yourself in the WNBA or the women's basketball space. This is really, to me, like a great example that these are all so altruistic. Like, you want to help women in the sport. Anna Marie, I know you love helping candidates find new roles. So this is amazing. Great examples. Now, in order to do this, you have to be willing to be bold and tell that story of who you are so that people trust you and want to work with you. And I'm going to tell, I would say, my top lucky 7 tips on how to do this using your LinkedIn, and then I'll open it up for questions. Okay, so number 1, the number 1 determinant of whether or not you get views on your profile, connection requests, is an up-to-date and high quality photo. So we all know that you should have an up-to-date professional photo, but I would encourage you to make it engaging. If you haven't updated it in a few years, have a friend of yours use an iPhone to create like a portrait mode quality photo for you, where not only are you warm and friendly, but you are representing the type of professional that you want to be known as. So a lot of people ask me, the most common photo question I get is, should I be wearing a suit and tie? I say it completely depends, again, on that objective for LinkedIn. For me, I want to be known as a voice on a podcast and an influencer, but I work in a tech company, so I am okay with being in a t-shirt or a sweatshirt on my LinkedIn profile photo. It just depends. Another way that you can do that, a lot of people try this one, and I'll show you my example, is you use a background photo to amplify your personal photo. So I recently had a speaking gig that was one of my largest audiences ever. It was a panel I was facilitating at my company. So I got the professional photographer to do a zoomed out shot for me to demonstrate that I am confident speaking on stage, which is leading me to our second call to action, which is, after you've got that photo up to date, it's time to tell your story in 1 line. So a lot of people don't know, but this field is called your headline. I'm going to point to it. And your headline is your elevator pitch. It should be 50 characters or less. You can see mine has actually traversed and become 2 lines, but it's where people are going to read the summary of who you are at the very first glance. And a lot of people now on LinkedIn are viewing you on mobile devices. So picture someone looking at you on their device. Can they tell who you are and what you do in 1 to 2 sentences before they even have to scroll down below the fold? So this can also be something that you customize to be different than your job title, because your job title is already on your profile. Something you might do is consider weaving together your first or last 2 roles and saying, instead of just onboarding lead and enablement lead, I say, I'm a learning champion, and I'm an onboarding lead, and I'm a USC Trojan and former expat here. So it's really a place for you to also insert some of your personal values and experience. I always recommend using your own voice, or in my case, sometimes it's emojis, to add that personality, but only if that's appropriate for what you want to convey and the role that you want next. But last but not least, be sure to inject something that's unique and that could really only refer to you. If your headline says, I'm a career advisor in Los Angeles, you could be one of hundreds. So I encourage you to think of what sets you apart and makes you unique. That is a great place to start when you're thinking about your headline. All right, another common question I get is, well, what if I don't know what to put? Like, how can I generate a good idea or creative idea for a headline? Keep in mind your headline defaults to your current job title. So if you've never edited it, mine would just say Senior Enablement Lead at LinkedIn. But I would encourage you to pick out your number 1 most cherished value that's most important to you and start from there and say, use an adjective, right? Say, I'm a passionate learning geek, or I'm a, communicative social butterfly. That's one that resonates for me, in case you're surprised. Okay.
What I love right now is like, it's what I love about you and your profile is that your personality totally translate. I can read your tone of voice and what you're saying, your excitement through your posts or through your profile. And I think that's and it's very authentic and it's part of your brand, if you will. Because one of the I was just reading Anna Marie's comment here that she said increasing brand after I get a new role with a new company. So here's my thing: when you're creating what your headline, don't you want to create your brand before you get a new role, because your brand would get you there? The reason why I'm asking that is one of the things that I personally highly recommend to our students is, when you get your acceptance letter and you're going through the program, put on your LinkedIn profile MBA class of 2025, because you are building that. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Sure. Yes. And I know Anna Marie wouldn't mind me making her an example. So I think this is where oftentimes in a session like this, I'll say this a lot. I'll say, it depends.
Right.
It depends on your goal. And to be honest, it depends on your current like comfort level conveying your brand as it stands today. So a great example would be, let's say I am unemployed because I recently got laid off. I feel like I've talked to countless people right now who are in a position where they have a little bit of hesitation to share that with the world. Maybe there is some like embarrassment or discomfort. So they're not looking to post all over LinkedIn and say, yay, look at me, I'm unemployed. However, another example would be if you don't love your current company and you're not proud to be working there at the moment. However, on the other hand, maybe you have students at Ducere who are, self-employed entrepreneurs and they're pursuing their MBA. So they're like, hey, look at me. I'm invested in my learning. I'm an MBA student. So I feel like it's about anchoring on, again, your values and your current career story, owning that, being okay with it, and articulating the story that you want people to know about you. So another great way of looking at it, regardless of your employer, could be like, for you, Anna Marie, your headline could be longtime talent connector pursuing my next role in leadership. I know a lot of people who have the words pursuing or seeking right in their headline, but it depends on what you feel comfortable with sharing and then owning it. I recently watched an amazing, like, informational or inspirational video podcast on telling your story. I'm going to plug it for you all. It's called Authenticity and Leadership by Bill George. And if you haven't heard of him, he's a former CEO, like longtime business leader who's now an executive coach. And he says, get really good at telling your story. Do you know your story? And if you don't, think about what are the proudest moments of your career in life, but what are your crucibles? What were your downfalls or your pitfalls in your career? If you can own both of those, that's how you build an authentic leadership story. So I'm sharing it with you all in the chat.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
it's so true, because I'm going to use myself as an example. I didn't really know my story until we're doing a D&I activity with an organization, and they said, okay, tell us about yourself. It wasn't until I wrote it down, I was like, oh my God, it's until you put it on paper. So I love that you said that.
Thank you. I'm so glad it resonated. I'm going to keep monitoring the chat. And thank you so, so much to those of you who are like comfortable sharing and being open. I didn't know this news when I gave the example of someone being laid off. So Anna Marie, thank you so much for being vulnerable with our audience. I'm ready here. I'm here for it. For anyone who wants to have a new personal brand. I'm actually thinking about how I want to, adapt my personal brand because it's so revolved around LinkedIn. I've been an advocate of LinkedIn for 10 years. But I don't want my brand to only be about LinkedIn. I have a lot of other knowledge and things to share with the world. So that leads me to a great way, and my tip number 3 for amplifying your brand, whatever you want that to be. And that is becoming a creator. So on LinkedIn, we've built a new persona or an identity called a creator, which is someone who wants their profile to be seen because they have knowledge and wisdom to share. So if you activate what we call creator mode, what this does for you is, I would say, like 3 key differences. It defaults your page to say follow instead of connect. So Bill, Caroline, you two as examples, you probably have a lot of students and prospective students and alumni who all want to connect with you. You probably don't even know them all that personally. So if you feel an influx of people connecting with you, I love this one. Default that button to say follow. People can still connect with you if they know you on a personal level. Then secondly, it showcases anything that you post on LinkedIn at the top of your profile. So I'll show you mine in an example shortly, but it will basically put your recent posts and articles at the top of your feed or the LinkedIn page that makes up your profile. And this is a great way to really establish your voice and have your content be visible to your network that you want to read it and see it. But what it does, lastly, is it allows you a brand new feature, which is to record your name. And this is an inclusion and diversity feature that we invested in so that people could pronounce each other's names and be conscientious. But I love it because it also gives you a 10-second bit of airtime to showcase your executive presence and really illustrate, like Caroline said, my personality. So you get up to 10 seconds, but I could say Corey Elizabeth Welsh. That's my pronunciation. My name is a pretty, straightforward name linguistically, but if you have a name that people often butcher or that people are not sure whether or not it's like male or female, I always recommend using this feature. Even if your name is like Joe Smith. Okay. The last capability that creator mode gives you is our 5th tip of the day, which is really taking it to the next level. So for those of you who feel like you're still a novice to LinkedIn, there's no pressure to go above and beyond with this one, but are you ready to create a video cover story for your LinkedIn profile? Caroline, this is what I want you to do next.
So
this is
awkward.
where overlaying your photo, instead of just having a profile photo on the homepage, this allows you to have a video that auto plays when anyone visits your profile. So this gives you actually 30 seconds of airtime instead of 10. It allows you to give that elevator pitch live and highlight not only your career story, but perhaps maybe your goals or your items that you're open to on LinkedIn. And oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how much more engagement I get with my profile since I was willing to try this out. Now it is vulnerable. Caroline said, it's so awkward. But if you're trying to get hired and you want to stand out from the rest of the members on LinkedIn, I cannot recommend anything more highly than this. Now it's bold, but it also is a great way to, again, convey your communication skills and executive presence. So if I recall, my video is slightly outdated now. I definitely need to update it, but it says, hey everyone, I'm Corey. And what you won't see about me on my profile is that I'm a cat mom. I used to live in Sydney, Australia, and I love talking to career switchers and students and expats about making transformation. And it really is a great conversation starter for people to reach out to me, recruiters to see my capacity for communication if I'm applying for a role. And it's honestly just a fun way to showcase like my personality and what it would be like to work with me. You can see this is my home office in the video, so people see my bookshelf. It's not very glamorous, but we all let that show when we're on a Zoom meeting. So why not let it show to your LinkedIn network?
Yeah, and I
so
think
I've shared. Yeah, go ahead. I
no,
shared so many
the background.
tips. I want
Background
to
was
pause.
my what. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was gonna make comment about background, like how like you want it to be professional, but at the same time, is it like, are you gonna be at WeWork? Are you gonna be in your home office? Is it like how, that was
I definitely think that choice depends on industry. So similar in your video to your let's say cover photo, you want to showcase people like where you want to end up and what you're open to. So for me, like you can tell I can be very casual and I work in my home office, but I also can pull it together professionally. So I showcased like this environment where I was speaking at this is a conference room in a hotel. But again, what I've noticed now is the common thread here is how do you illustrate the type of professional you are? This is not an online resume. Your LinkedIn is a dynamic, living and breathing profile of record, and you want to maximize it and use it as such. If you only have text and copy on your LinkedIn, you're completely underutilizing its capacity to show, not tell, and let people see again, like a bit of color, literally and proverbially, around who you are as someone to work with.
I love that. Thank you. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments in the chat about the first 5 pro tips that I've shared? We're about halfway through our time together. So I've prepared about 3 additional tips. So I promised you a lucky 7 with a bonus tip at the end. But Caroline, how are we doing on time? And what is our hard stop for this session?
That'll be Bill question.
Yeah, no, we're good on time. We always do an hour. So we're 30 minutes in, and we probably want to have 15 minutes for a Q&A, for questions, and just a general Q&A. So good on time so far.
Great. Okay. So let's keep going. I will share with you tip number 6. And after you've gone ahead and you've really built that story of who you are with a short headline, imagery, it's time to really sell yourself in a summary. The summary is your about section, or it says about me on LinkedIn. And I get a lot of questions about best practices for this. So rather than sticking to 40 characters, this is a section that can be 40 words, maybe 40 to 100. And this is where I also always recommend, because it's featured at the topmost section of your profile, you want to avoid hiding the hook. It is time to tell people who you are, where you've been, and where you want to be. That's my 3-part recipe for the About Me section. Now, your summary can be hard for people to concisely put together or synthesize. I once heard a funny quote that I laugh every time I hear it, but it says, you know, I believe it was by the author of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain, who said, "Oh, Caroline, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long letter." Because editing things to be shorter is actually way harder for some people than extrapolating forever. But I will encourage everyone to think of, okay, max 3 sentences in the first paragraph of your summary. Definitely should never be more than 3 sentences. And I recently also watched a video course on LinkedIn Learning on like how to compose your elevator pitch. One would be leading with your values. Again, who are you? You don't need to repeat your job title because people have already heard that and seen it. Second is, what have you done in the past if you had to summarize it in 1 sentence? So as a longtime client success leader in tech, I am a passionate tech teacher with a love of helping others learn. So how do you draw the past together in a succinct summary and then pivot it to what it is that you do because of that? Another great tip, or step 3 in this video course to composing your summary and your pitch, was after you say who you are, what you've done, it's time to share where you want to be. So I might say something like, as you know, a moonlighting career coach and a gender equality enthusiast, I am, this is me doing this on the spot, as you can tell, I am a, future tech leader, passionate about onboarding and assisting career switchers at the inflection point of their career.
Question, for someone who doesn't use ChatGPT, as I'm like trying to like get into it slowly but surely, but make sure it's not cheating, but make sure it's authentic. And how do you recommend that for people that are struggling with? Do you recommend using it, or does LinkedIn?
Great idea.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I forgot to recommend that, maybe proactively. So if you're someone comfortable with using generative AI tools to help you with your writing, I think that you can still definitely make it authentic and in your own voice, but you can basically use a shortcut to summarize the things that you've done or that you love to do. So in addition to ChatGPT, which has, a really up-to-date version, I think it's GPT-4, we've also begun embedding generative AI helpers into LinkedIn, so you can have your profile actually pop up and say, would you like help writing this summary? Or would you like help writing this post? So these are our 2 newest and first generative AI kind of capabilities. And I would recommend one, generative AI is about the power of the prompt. So you have to be very specific and tell it what you want. So I would say, write a summary of my career, and then you could copy and paste like 20 lines of text. But let's say again, like Anna Marie, you're trying to really craft maybe a new brand for yourself, then you have to tell it specifically what you're looking for. So I would say, write a 3-sentence summary of my career focused on hardware, tech, software tech, and recruitment.
That is
the power of being specific. Boom, changes the whole outcome.
That is within LinkedIn.
Yes, you can do that within LinkedIn. However, I would recommend what I just described as like a prompt for ChatGPT.
Got it. Because for me, it popped up something on LinkedIn. I was typing a post, and I was like, whoa, what is happening?
My last invitation is, do not be intimidated by generative AI helpers, because you can't break them and they cannot break you. You get to decide what ultimately is published, but it is a tool to help basically like synthesize, summarize, and compose a first draft. But always, always edit that to be in your own voice, especially if a piece of language or a phrase like does not resonate and you don't know if you love it, because this is a space for you to represent yourself.
Exactly.
So always like leading with integrity, I try to say, like, I only use ChatGPT as a starting off point or, a shortcut, but I always, always customize it and edit to be in my own voice.
Thank you.
Why don't we switch to a live demo in just a few moments of how you can do this in LinkedIn Live? And then lastly, though, I have to leave you with my 7th tip, which many of you are probably thinking, this one's obvious, but one of the most simple and overlooked is detailing your work experience on LinkedIn. This is the most commonly underutilized field, actually, that I see of any of the fields. This is the space where you write your job, your current job, your most recent job, and your previous jobs, but you have ample space to write copy or to add multimedia, things like hyperlinks to websites, documents, images. This is where you can really bring your experience at a company to life. So this example here of a founder who started a company called Sunday Dinner, this is an example of what not to do, right? They've written 3 long paragraphs. I don't have time for that. Instead, I want you to focus in on your accomplishments. So what are the 3 bullets that you're most proud of in this role? I've recruited 300 MBA students to Ducere in my first year. Or 2, I was named top business development rep at my company in 2020. That was a recent friend of mine who I was helping coach on his profile, where I encouraged him to be proud and highlight his accomplishments in a quantifiable way, using specifics like revenue numbers or the year in which you were recognized for an accolade is a really good way to kind of build credibility. And again, tell that story, build out color in that story so people can know about you before they've even spoken to you. And then our data shows us that this gives you like way more engagement with your profile. So 5 times more profile views on profiles that have this section built out than those that have blank experience sections, as well as more connection requests, like more in-mails.
Because you can
So
leave the
I
rest
think,
of this. I'm sorry, because you can leave the rest of this for your resume. When you add more text, you can do all of that on paper on your resume. But here you want to be what you're saying. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. You want to make sure that you are lighting shine on quantifying quality of work that you've done and make it pop. So it makes it attractive for people to actually reach out to you to ask for a resume.
correct. That's a great, great distinction. So I asked for you to elaborate because I actually think on your resume, you should also highlight quantifiable impact and not get too flowery and write 3 paragraphs. As we all know, like your resume should be as succinct as possible. However, remember that your LinkedIn, that's your first impression. That's where people are going to look first to see a quick summary online, which is why I'm so in love with a video that concisely tells an audience member of who you are. Then let them go read about your experience, right? And get into the weeds and see specifics. Then they'll ask for your resume if they want to go deeper on what years did you work at that employer or what else did you achieve. So keep in mind, right? A lot of people's career journey looks like this when you look at a resume, right? It's like one after the other. This is an example of my career journey, actually, if you looked at it in a linear way. But an executive coach gave me an exercise with an interactive template to fill out my real career journey. It was so transformative and revealing to me that if you think about every setback, every pivot, every time I wasn't selected for a job, or every time I moved functions and regions, it really builds a more interesting tale. And that's what I would encourage you all to do on your LinkedIn profile is don't be afraid to add the color. And the reason I think that's so critical is because I actually wrote a post on LinkedIn and shared this. It got the most engagement of any post I've ever shared on LinkedIn in like 15 years. It got the most comments and engagement. But the other reason that's important is because over 60 million people are looking at jobs on LinkedIn. So how are you going to set yourself apart from the rest? By sharing your authentic journey in some detail. And things like I mentioned, multimedia, some color. So let's do a demo while we still have 20 minutes left. And I'm going to do this in real time. So if you have questions or comments, now is a great time to pause, reflect, and put them in the chat for me. I hope my internet cooperates. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm also going to be vulnerable and share with you all my profile. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
All right. So the great news is I feel that on LinkedIn, I have so much opportunity to do things like post content and share updates that I change and update my profile all the time. So I actually recently changed my background image from being an example of me doing a public speaking event to demonstrating that I'm an ally to those who, resonate with the LGBTQ community. And oftentimes I'll change this, I would say on like a bi-monthly basis, maybe to keep it up to date with current events. But this is the view of my own profile. So you can see things that I'm able to edit, like suggestions. I'm going to remove those and my analytics to show you what you see when employers or potential clients come look at my profile. So the first is, I mentioned, right, pronunciation of my name, which anyone can listen to. My headline, which shows, again, kind of a summary of the type of person I am. I'm very much into learning and teaching. So I resonated with like learning champion, but I'm still figuring out what I want to be known for. Then when you scroll down, before you even see what I do for a living or what else I've done, you see some of my recent articles, which were long form blog posts on LinkedIn. This is a way for me to showcase, again, not only my personality, but my, I don't know, my street cred, my experiences in my industry. So I recently spoke at a conference and I wrote a summary of that speaking engagement with a photo to showcase what I did and to really amplify the fact that I'm in sales enablement. So we focus here on sales training in my team, and we recently rolled out a new method for selling that was a huge learning for me and a big transformation at the company. So I wrote about it, but I also shared how we used the Ted Lasso philosophy as inspiration, and it drew a lot of readers because I think Ted Lasso is like, a commonly loved leader, albeit fictional. And I'm going to go back just to showcase the way that I brought that to the top of my profile was by using the featured posts capability. You can pin and star the top 3 posts that you're most proud of to be amplified here at the top. So I decided to try to do a variety, like I did an article and then a photo post, but that's only because I was in the middle of actively recruiting as well in my area. I live in Los Angeles, women to this new professional community that I'm starting. So what are the things that you're working on and what are the things that you want to be known for? Make sure you've highlighted those to be at the top. Okay, then you see, because I'm looking at my own profile, another highlight reel of my recent activity, but most important here is looking at my summary. So here again, if someone else is looking at me, they're going to see a few things right at the top of the fold. Before they see the button that says, if you zoom in, it says see more. They only see about 3 lines of text. Now, I try to show people this. I think it's important because that's why you don't want to hide the hook. You want to get to the point right at the top of your summary. So I led with a phrase that a new hire said to me like 2 days ago. She was like, wow, Corey, you really seem like a connector at heart. I was like, yes, I am a connection queen. Like I said, social butterfly, token extrovert. So I say I'm a connector at heart who loves to inspire those around me to maximize their potential. And how do I do that? By building community, like hosting a session like this or running my book club. I do it through learning. I try to lead by example and invest in my learning like at least once a week. And this is just one example of many styles of weaving together all the things that you like doing, that you've done in the past, and that you want to be doing in the future with 1 or 2 succinct sentences. The next common question I get, by the way, is should I include anything about my current job or my current company right in my summary? So I'll leave you with this. Everyone on this line, actually, like DJ, Carly, Anna Marie, it depends on your goal and your relationship with your current employer and your situation. So for me, I'm proud to work at LinkedIn. I want to be a spokesperson of LinkedIn's like mission and best practices. So I say that yes, currently, as a member of sales enablement at LinkedIn, my day job is making new hires the best they could be. But if you don't want to build your brand around your employer, you don't have to say that. You could say, as a master's student at Ducere, I am on a journey to grow my leadership capability. That's just an example, again, off the cuff, but happy to give other examples or brainstorm them live. And then last thing I wanted to demonstrate was how you can actually extrapolate on your experience here when you add a hyperlink or a piece of media to your experience. So I say that I'm a leader for our Women at LinkedIn employee resource group, but I'm also a lead for new hire onboarding, and I have a little link to LinkedIn's like company demographics and culture here. So people could be like, oh, I wonder what it's like to work at LinkedIn. I'm going to click here. Oops. This is the edit feature because I'm moderating on Zoom. Okay. So you click here and it actually showcases a little bit of like detail about LinkedIn. So you can just click view and it will take you to like learn more about my employer. I highly recommend people do this, and a lot of people do not. One great way that everyone listening to this session could do that is adding a link to Ducere's website in their experience that lists that they work at or are attending Ducere Global Business School. Okay, so I'm going to pause sharing so I can check the chat. Any questions, Caroline, or anything you want to add?
No, this is great because you talk about one thing that I always think about is people don't read. So I love what you said about putting what you want to stand out or pop right in the beginning, because most often than not, that's what people are going to read. And then if they're interested, then they can always read more. But if someone is just going through, I don't know how many profiles. Yeah, I love that you said that. And then Anna Marie was talking about emoji. I feel the same. I'm like, I'm gonna use emoji, but is it professional? Is it okay? Is it not? Again, I look at your post, I'm like, yes, it's okay. Yes, let's do it. But then when I want to do it, I kind of get stuck.
Totally. That's very common. I get that question a lot. Now we know why they're harder to find as well for those of you using a PC. But I think, again, it depends. It depends on where you want to be, where you're currently working. Also, not just you, but the audience that you're trying to attract. So if you've been in recruitment, then you're trying to appeal to every type of candidate. Maybe emojis aren't the most professional because, like, for example, Caroline, you're trying to recruit students from like all different industries and walks of life. But I think also being true to yourself and being authentic, like the way that I love your background because you have real like books and mascot and a graduate in your little, like that to me makes me want to get to know you more and work with you even more. I think honestly, whatever it is, by the way, Bill, I love your art behind you as well. Great example. Like these are the ways that we give personality and human elements to our professional selves. So speaking of our professional selves, I want to make sure we leave time for one last tip because I promised a bonus tip. Our next session is going to be once you've built your LinkedIn like story and your presence, how do you reach out, and connect with others? So this is how you connect with me. If anyone on the line wants to, you go ahead and you just hold up your camera, scan that QR code, and that will enable you to find my LinkedIn profile. But if you don't know where to start and you want to start building out your network even further, I always recommend starting with fellow students and alumni of your same institution. So right before I got on this session, I went to Ducere's website on LinkedIn. This is called your university page. And you click on the 5th tab that says alumni. And this will show you all of the people on LinkedIn who associate with Ducere. And just in the last 4 years, we have over, almost, I should say, 400 graduates or current students. And then you can go ahead and you can click down and see like, what are the top employers where they work? Where are they based? A lot of them are based in Australia. And then you can go ahead and you can connect with them. This is a great way to also like start a combo or find people in your same industry because they went to the same institution, and cannot recommend it more for finding new connections because it's how I found friends when I moved to a new city. It's how I also found people who worked at my company because I didn't really know anyone yet. I just looked up people who were also alumni of the same university.
That's such a great idea. And especially because for our school, our audience is more mature audience. So I don't know how, comfortable, or like you were saying, don't be scared. You're not going to break it. It's not going to break you. I don't just for people to be able to, or students to be able to take advantage of it. Because I really don't think we do. I know like I have my, undergrad and grad, and I don't think I have taken advantage of it myself.
It's just oftentimes only used when you need it. Like if you're in a new position, where I was moving to Australia at the time and I didn't have a network. So I was like, where can I go find a network? But it's also a great reminder of just like how to keep up with people in a similar space or like phase of life. And most of you, I know that if you're enrolled at Ducere, you are making a career pivot or you're hoping to. So this is a great, great, great place to meet more business leaders and expand your sphere of influence, right? By connecting with new
Yes.
people. So for everyone on the call, I would recommend trying that too. If you're here because you're looking to make a change or grow your network. Like DJ, who is on the line, he works at a university. So, oh my gosh, I bet, Derek, there's no short of alumni, current students, fellow alumni, fellow colleagues who all are affiliated with that university page.
And then
What
how
else? Any questions? Yeah.
Sorry, how about for individuals who are more, because we also have students that are entrepreneurs, they're starting their own business. So they're not really looking to get a job, they're looking to expand their own business.
I think, again, this all goes back right to your why. If your goal is to find potential clients, then I think, or let's say like future clients and prospects, there's two things you can do. The best thing I try to do, as you all can tell, right? I'm really passionate about helping students. So I love connecting with higher education professionals. So therefore, I sometimes go to the universities that I am interested in working with, and I'll go to their university page, go to the tab that says people, and I'll just take a look at who works there, who went there. Is there anyone in my network already that is affiliated with that university that I didn't even realize? And you can find all of that by just going to the alumni page, which is this. So like I went to Ducere, I scrolled down and I could see all the people who I'm already a connection with. But secondly, let's say you're writing a book. So you're trying to grow your network so that people find out about your book when it launches. The other thing I would do is I would begin posting content that that group is interested in. So I started about 2 months ago posting one tip weekly for current undergraduate students. If anyone didn't see it, it was a little video series called Tuesday Tips. And I just basically started like targeting students with my advice, but then I would tag all the professionals I know who are in higher ed underneath the post every single time. I would write them in the comments. So I know some of you saw those posts, but it actually led me to be invited just like this week to speak at my old alma mater, my university. My previous career advisor, Leticia, invited me to come speak at a classroom. So just know that that works. If you start posting and amplifying your voice, but making sure you're posting something that would be of value to your audience can really help kind of expand and draw upon that network.
That's very valuable that share that, because I feel like most often than not, when you think about that, attracting, especially when it comes to your own business, it's you want to go to Instagram, which is fine to do that, or for a different market, they're like, oh, let's get on Facebook. But when it's about your professional life, I feel like it's critical to make sure that you got your LinkedIn, hype and up and running, and it's, where it needs to be. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely a multifaceted strategy. Like many of you, depending on the target audience of your goals, it might be Instagram and LinkedIn. But I always remind people, LinkedIn is your professional profile of record, right? We have 1 billion members now on LinkedIn. And look what else. We have so many like assets other than jobs. You can go to LinkedIn to find, skills and develop your skills with learning content. We have schools and universities now, over like 130,000 schools are represented on LinkedIn. So thinking about if people are going to Google you, which they are, what do you want them to see? Is it your LinkedIn? Is it your Instagram? Or is it a little blank Facebook profile that's outdated? You want this to be the updated place to go. So like I said earlier, our next session is going to be about how to grow and expand that network once you've done the profile. And we're going to talk about who is it that you want to target? And we'll go into more detail on this. But for now, I'll pause and allow anyone who has a question to either ask me or maybe you want to update your profile and add me. Caroline, that includes you too.
Yes, I know. I was just thinking, I don't know what was the last time but on updating profile, so because we're talking about branding. So it's one thing to be said about, people, when people see the same thing, it sticks with them, because you did mention that you change your background once in a while. So how do you feel about that? Because every time I come there, I'm like, oh, wow, Corey, like she speaks, she's obviously a strong presenter or whatnot. And then I come back to the flag. So how is that? I mean, I'm assuming it's working. That's what you're doing it. But what's your thought on that? Because I I've picked my background since I joined Ducere about 3 years ago, and I left it because I'm like, I'm Ducere. This is what it is. This is what I love. I want people to know me that way. But now I'm thinking, if I'm changing that, how is that gonna, because then I'm not reiterating that brand that I'm wanting to create.
Okay, I think this is a really great point that I've actually never really thought about. So tell me if I understood it right. I feel like there's a fine line between updating your brand and keeping it fresh, but not changing it so often that people don't even know who you are when you pop up in their
Exactly.
feed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I definitely have noticed that what works for me is I keep part of my LinkedIn brand very consistent. This photo is, I think, very representative of me and my recent career, but I took this picture in 2020. So it's not very updated anymore, but it's like I'm wearing the blue t-shirt of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It sounds so basic, but people like know that and see it. If I dyed my hair and added glasses and I updated my photo, people might be confused. So I only update one component of my brand picture. Like another example is the background image. You can tell like used to be a speaking engagement, now it's a pride image. I feel like that I can diversify, but my headline has been the same for like 3 years, which is a learning champion onboarding lead. Another example I've seen people ask me is, what if I've changed my professional name? Like, what should I do to identify on LinkedIn? If you've like gotten married or changed your name for legal reasons, I also find like leaving your original name or your previous brand embedded there is actually really important, because when people go to search for you, let's say, Caroline, you updated your name and I searched Caroline Raffi because that's how I know you, you would not come up in the search results.
That's right.
So I would encourage you to keep your original or previous identity partially in the quote, like my sister who recently got married. It used to say Chloe Welsh. Now it says Chloe Welsh Economy, but she's put Welsh in the parentheses, like a lot of people do, is like common
That's
best
right.
practice. So if anyone has other tips for that or questions, definitely let me know. But I always think like, don't do a 180 on your brand, but don't be afraid to change it if you want to be known as something different, or at least make a pivot by leaving a touch of your original brand so people can find you.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, do you have
sure. That's a great
question?
question.
Sorry, I feel like
Anyone on the line want to come off and share with us? Raya, Derek, Carly, Anna Marie, you're totally welcome to, as we have a small group today. All right. Give me a thumbs up emoji or a heart in the chat if you learned something on this webinar. No pressure. Thank you, Anna Marie. Oh, good. People know how to use the emojis. That was the test. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak and partner. I love Ducere and I can't wait to continue the partnership.
Thank you so much. We're very grateful. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience. This is really exciting. And next time we meet, it's going to be in March, which is Women's History Month. So it's double exciting. So hopefully we get to see everybody then. And thank you so much, Craig. Really appreciate you. And thanks, Bill, for all the support.
Absolutely. Always. Thanks, everyone. See you in March.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Bye.